Good morning, everybody. So, yeah, so ever since I opened up my new group, or my new, not new group, but my new business page, it's been like some new energy. I know that we're heading into some interesting times here. I mean, I'm watching my news feed and they just approved the Ebola virus vaccine. We hear about the Ebola virus all over the world. And when they make a vaccine, they know it's coming to your soil. They know. I don't care where you think it came from, but it's coming to your soil. The holistic industry has completely done a disservice to their members because viruses, we don't get many deadly viruses. I mean, yeah, once a year we get the flu virus and they say this flu bug is getting stronger and stronger, or people are getting weaker and weaker, and people still succumb from the symptoms. But we haven't really had a major scare of any major virus in a while. I think the last one was the AIDS virus. And so this new one, they've been grooming us to understand and expect. It's been around since the 90s. It's the Ebola virus. And they've made a vaccine for it because, yes, it's coming to your soil. And people still get lost in the fact that they think that antibiotics, whether it's synthetic or whether it is natural antibiotics, is going to stop a virus from doing something. And viruses do not get killed by antibiotics. Viruses have to run its course. A virus, basically what it does, it goes in and it scans the environment. And it's like a pass or fail. I mean, that's what viruses are. It's like a pass or fail. You fail if you die from the exposure. You pass if you can handle the symptoms. That's the whole point of the vaccines, okay? Just so you know, that's the whole point of the vaccines, is they know there's no antibiotic in the world that's going to stop a virus. But a vaccine can lessen the severity of its effect on you. That's the point of the vaccines. I didn't know that in a couple years ago. So I was totally anti-vax. But then, we are so privileged not to have these crazy viruses out there, or we're privileged enough to have a very strong body that even the flu virus really couldn't take me down. But we haven't had a major deadly virus in a long time. And so with this, the drum beats around the Ebola virus is getting stronger and stronger. And so even though I was anti-vax a couple of years ago, there was something, but that wasn't covered in the Dr. Phil show. What was covered in the Dr. Phil show was the fear of the salt, was the fear of probiotics. Oh, this moldy cabbage water. I mean, he was slamming the drink, didn't want to even look at the beneficial nutritive properties of the JILLY juice. He wanted to capitalize on people who had predispositions that were triggering from the healing process. Because all they know is to know how to mitigate pain and to give you an antibiotic, but then let a virus run its course or give you a vaccine. And that's fine. Vaccines save lives. I mean, now it's even more pronounced more than ever that vaccines do save lives. However, if you have predispositions, you're not going to escape any adverse reaction, especially if you have predispositions. And that's what's misunderstood in the anti-vax community, and is now being sort of understood by the pro-vax community. However, they're buying into some of the anti-vax as they see their bodies triggering predispositions. So I'm reading some of the people who are, like the articles about flu shots and how you should get your flu shot, which you should if you have a weak body, okay? And people are saying, yeah, when this person said that they got the flu shot and they had a little bit of an adverse reaction, but then she said that the nurse said this is not supposed to stop you from getting sick. You're going to get sick, but at least you're not going to have so many irreversible, I guess in their words, complications from the symptoms. Because that's what the point of the whole vaccine is, to lessen the severity of the symptoms so you don't die from a preventable disease, okay? But now we're dealing with the Ebola virus, and we have people with weak blood vessels, cardiovascular issues, the elderly, the sick, the children. So I opened up my group, or a new business page, which means I have a few people I've blocked already. One of my main people that doesn't like me, that has an active campaign against me, was commenting. And I knew there was other comments, but I only read one comment. The others were hidden because as soon as I read it, I didn't want to debate back and forth with her, but it came off interesting. She's like, well, why don't you let the WHO, the World Health Organization, know about the J juice and Ebola if you believe in it so much? And I'm like, I already put it out there to Dr. Phil about the J juice, the healing properties, the potential to live 300 years old, right? Reversing all cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and regrowing limbs and organs, all that. And I was being laughed off the stage. I had people actively just working against me left and right, wanting to suppress this information, afraid of the salt, don't understand electrolytes, don't understand chemistry, biochemistry. I mean, I'm dealing with ignorance left and right. And so I tried to get this out on the public forum only to have it be mocked and insulted. And so if at all the WHO was listening, they're not listening anymore because of you guys. So in a lot of ways, you alone, Dr. Phil, as well as PewDiePie and Jeff Holiday, and all of you guys making fun of this information, now have literally blood on your hands. Literally blood on your hands. And I'll tell you why. Because there's no antibiotics going to stop the Ebola virus. As soon as you get the vaccine, you're going to get the attenuated virus in the vaccine. This is where the anti-vaxxers have a problem because they have predispositions. And when you have predispositions, you're going to trigger something. If you're exposed to the virus in the environment, you might die, or you're going to trigger something from the vaccine. There's going to be offshoots of what you get in the vaccine for, and it's going to be a mild case of symptoms or a major based upon your predispositions, but at least you're alive. You might be maimed a bit, but at least you're alive. But you have weaknesses that you brought to the table. It's called predispositions. It's called future triggers. It's called past triggers. It's called present triggers. And so now those that are now so afraid of the J juice and so afraid of the salt and the probiotic and all of that, they're going to either be forced to face the Ebola virus without any support because they're so afraid of the vaccines, afraid of J juice, and so they're going to die anyways, or they're going to get the vaccine, they already have predispositions, and they're going to suffer complications. So any which way you turn, if you totally demonize the J juice, you are now cutting somebody off from the opportunity of strengthening their weaknesses. So when they are exposed to that virus, it's not going to take them down. The body is going to sense something is in the environment, and it's going to go after the most aggressive, severe issue in the body. So that way you're not taken down by a virus that you're exposed to in the environment or that's being harbored inside of you. Because those of you, that's been around for a while, you have antibodies. You're a blood type A, B, or O, and AB positive has the surface marker antigen A, which is made up of so many different minerals and bacteria and viruses. And then if you have a weak immune system, they will eventually agglutinate and turn into the actual virus at some point if you have enough of them, and if you have a weakness. That's what happens when someone is HIV. When someone has been exposed to HIV, but they're HIV negative, but when it comes HIV positive, it means that the antibodies are agglutinating, that the virus isn't too far from giving you symptoms that you cannot recover from. Okay? So those of you that have been slamming J juice as far as demonizing it, you've just completely, you've killed off a lot of people when you think about it. Because not only are they missing the valuable electrolytes for the cardiovascular system, especially if heart disease and sudden cardiac arrest is so prevalent in men and females, but now you have something like the Ebola virus coming into town, and your only option is to get the vaccine or not get the vaccine. You're so afraid of the JILLY juice, but no matter what, with your predispositions, you'll either die from the actual exposure of the Ebola virus, or you'll suffer complications from the vaccine that you don't even know what you're going to get. So you've killed off a third option for the people out there, which is, hey, get the vaccine or not get the vaccine, but do the J juice, but you're going to have to heal. it's not only be a protection from the Ebola virus, so to speak, from the complications of it. You're still going to experience symptoms because you've been exposed to it, but at least now you'll live through it and you'll heal the rest of your body. That's what's missing from those people that don't understand the J juice, as well as Dr. Phil, who is not doing very well. I'm not saying he's not doing very well, but I don't know. I'll take that back. I don't know how he's doing, but he's aging, so to me, he's not doing very well. So, you know, telling me to go to the WHO and talk about the J juice to them is laughable. Okay? Because they want a vaccine. They're giving everybody a vaccine out there for it. And they should. But those people probably don't have as many predispositions as the Americans do. America and the West have a lot more predispositions because they've been exposed to a lot more. Because we have been allowing people to live who shouldn't be, as far as Mother Nature is concerned. You know, they have pure Darwinism in Africa. Africa is suffering of as many diseases as America is suffering, because we keep curing death with disease. And when you have so much disease on this planet, or on, you know, in an area, you have so many weak people that are just sitting ducks. People in Africa are totally strong. They'll be able to handle the vaccine and anything else that, you know, that we can offer them as far as protection from a potential deadly virus. I mean, they still had the pandemic or the epidemic out there when it first was discovered. They had to quarantine the village, but they get the vaccine. It's going to save them, but who knows what other diseases are going to be offshoots from being cured from death, because that's what the vaccine, it cures death. Okay? And so, but they don't have as many predispositions in Africa. But America does. America has a lot of predispositions that you cannot afford not to get the vaccine. You can afford not to do the J juice, because you have no idea how your biochemistry is. Is it going to be able to handle the ingredients in the vaccine? And will you be able to handle that actual virus in your environment when someone's shedding? Because even if a person is exposed to Ebola and has it, and then you're around it, that's a really strong version. You'll see that in Africa, right? Because you see all that, you know, the pandemics around that. But when somebody is shedding the virus, vaccines are shedding the virus. Rose, I'm going to delete your comment, because I'm not saying they're the only answer. So I'm just going to delete your, so don't even go there, Rose, because I'm going to be deleting people who are anti-vax. So you got to understand the you got to do it. But does it matter? Not everyone's going to do the J juice, Rose. Not everyone is going to do the J juice, and you have to give people the opportunity. All right, I'm going to give you a pass on this, because you are kind of slipping in some, you know, some stuff that, okay, fine. But not everyone's going to do the J juice, okay? And so if somebody is not going to do the J juice and they're exposed to the virus, they're going to die. So they need to get the vaccine, okay? You need to get the vaccine. And yeah, I am getting younger. Thank you. I'll read your whole comment. So that way, because I don't want anybody slamming the vaccines at all, because I'm telling you, not everyone can do J juice. Because some people are too afraid to deal with pain. So they would rather roll the dice. You got to understand that, Rose. Okay, you have to understand that there's some people that will not do the J juice, and they will not be, or they won't be exposed to my information, and you can't slam the vaccine. You can't, because then you're putting people in a very precarious position. So Rose says vaccines are needed, but they're not the answer. Well, I never said they were the answer to everything, but they're giving people the opportunity to live. They are the answer to people that have predispositions that could potentially kill them, and the vaccine will give them the opportunity to live. Okay, vaccines going. That's right. If you're weak anyways, then you're going to die no matter what. But at least the vaccine gave a person who's on the brink of death the chance at life. Okay, So she got her first flu shot. She got violent sick. Yeah, because you know why you got violent sick? Oh my God, I got violently sick. I'm going to read this and I'm going to kind of poke holes in it. Okay, Rose? Oh my God, I got violently sick and I had a fever so high. I was delirious and I had hallucinations. I had a fever for almost 5 days. I had the chills and so bad that I was actually shaking, not to mention the awful aches and pains. It was a nightmare. Yeah, you have predispositions. You have a weak body. You have a weak body. Because a person can get a vaccine and not have any complications. So the reason why you had a reaction to that vaccine is because you were weak at that time. And the J juice is only going to strengthen your weaknesses. And it doesn't even matter. I mean, flu shots are the same. They're vaccines, though. Rose, they're still a vaccine. People that get flu shots, some people get flu shots and they don't have any kind of reaction. Some people get the flu shots and they get an adverse reaction. You know why? Because they have a predisposition. Because you had an adverse reaction doesn't mean somebody else, because you could have a set of predispositions that somebody else doesn't have. That's the difference. That's why I'm saying no matter what, you have to strengthen your body. And if you don't do J-juice, then you got to do a vaccine or you brave the elements, and most likely you're not going to survive. I know you didn't mean it that way. I know you want it, but see, here's the thing. Whenever you put fear about the vaccine because of your personal experience, you're making it sound like there's something wrong with the vaccine. Okay, you have to come from the standpoint that not everybody understands Jilly Juice. Not everybody is strong enough for the environment to withstand not doing something. Okay, and you don't want people rolling that dice. Because you had an adverse reaction doesn't mean that somebody else is. The reason why you had an adverse reaction because you have weaknesses. Any adverse reaction to your environment or to something medical out there, which is just basically bacteria, acid, okay, minerals, pro-hormones. Okay, that's all medicine is. And if you already have imbalances, then you're going to have an adverse reaction no matter what. But I mean, I could eat natural antibiotics in moderation. I'm sure that if I took the flu shot, I might sleep more for one day. Like if I've been exposed to a virus in my environment, which I have been. My husband was sick for a few days, like a month or so ago. The worst thing that I ever had was I had a little mucus and then I, was blowing my nose a lot more. That's about it. That was it. That was the extent of my exposure to the virus because my body is that strong. But Rose, if I get a vaccine, I might have a few symptoms. Big deal. Or I might not. I mean, that's the whole thing is that, we project our weaknesses onto others and make it sound like this is the universal thing that, and I would rather project strength than a weakness. I'm projecting strength onto you guys and hope that you might glom onto my strength so you can strengthen yourself, but I would never project any weakness. And sickness is a weakness. It's your personal weakness. It's not mine. If they make the Ebola virus or the Ebola vaccine mandatory, I'd do it. It's more data for me. And actually my body will take, my body will actually utilize that data to its benefit. It won't be a detriment. Because viruses on a weak body will recycle that body back into the universe and start systematically shutting you down if you're that weak. Viruses on a strong body, you won't even know. You actually become more smarter. I mean, look at Steve Jobs until, his weaknesses then succumbed to the virus, the pancreatic cancer viruses. So you can do amazing things on a strong body exposed to viruses because they were already in his body. The reason why he died of pancreatic cancer because his body weakened. He didn't keep his body up. So the viruses recycled him back into the universe. That's called cancer. So you got to strengthen your body no matter what. So anyone slamming the J juice has then taken off the table a third possibility. That some people need that third possibility. They need to have that opportunity, that option. And Dr. Phil just slammed that third possibility off the table for everybody that his audience needs it the most. Most of his audience are people who are, who are staying at home watching TV, who have predispositions. They could be retired, they could be on disability, they could be on SSI, stay-at-home moms. And he completely took that off the table for his people. So he has blood on his hands. And then the Carol Flacks out there in the world that are famously for slamming me on the Amazon, on Lulu, on all of that. They have blood on their hands because of their campaigns that are now biting them in the ass. And I bet you they're probably doing the J juice as we speak. I bet you they're doing the J juice as we speak, because how many antibiotics is Carol Flack going to take to try to stop the virus? She better know that antibiotics don't kill viruses. And you know that she or he has a weak body. So they're going to be a sitting duck for any crazy ass, or virus that's out there. Let me read this about, so you understand what I mean by as far as antibiotics, synthetic or not. Viruses, and so what prevents antibiotics from being effective against viruses? For those that are using all your little pills and powders in lieu of vaccines. Viruses insert their genetic material into human cells. Dang it. Into human cells. DNA in order to reproduce. Okay? So if your body is weak, that virus will take over. Antibiotics cannot kill viruses because bacteria and viruses have different mechanisms and machinery to survive and replicate. The antibiotic has no target to attack in a virus. If anything, it further weakens a person, causing then the virus to then do more irreparable harm on a weak body. And so that's why these crunchy mamas turning to elderberry syrup and all of these different, stuff. All right, Rose, I'm not even going to go there. Rose, you are not perfectly healthy. Rose, you're not perfectly healthy, Rose. People who think they're perfectly healthy before they got the shot now just said that you were never perfectly healthy, Rose. You were people who think they're doing the J juice that are perfectly healthy, they realize that they're not perfectly healthy. You are aging and degrading, Rose. Prior to the J juice, you are aging and degrading. So the fact that the shot showed you that you have predispositions, you can't even face that. And that is the problem with the anti-vax community, is they can't even come to terms with how unhealthy they are. And Rose, you are unhealthy. You seriously are. Don't blame the vaccine for your reaction. If you're allergic to something, you're freaking unhealthy. Allergies don't come from a vacuum. You have imbalances, Rose. If you get any reaction from your environment or from anything, from a shot or from anything out there, you have imbalances. It would be different if they were taking a lethal injection and putting it in your body, because that's universally going to kill somebody. But the vaccines are not lethal injections. So if you have an allergic reaction to something, it means you're the one that holds the weaknesses, not the shot, you alone. And most people cannot come to terms with the fact that they are as unhealthy as they are. And so I'm deleting that comment, because no, you are not unhealthy, or you are not healthy. You are completely unhealthy, and you can't come to terms with that. And I really take issue with those that are trying to slam vaccines in a very polite way. Yeah, you use the wrong words. You got me triggered because you're trying to slam the vaccine and not realize there's a reason for them. Okay, you were never healthy. You may have been relatively healthy compared to the population, but you were never healthy. Because I'm telling you, people can get the vaccine and not have any adverse reaction. What say that to you? Oh, were they magically just, you know, immune to the effects, or were you that unhealthy? So yeah, everybody that does the J juice or gets a vaccine and they have some sensitivity to it, you're the one that brought to the table the predispositions. It's not the vaccine's fault. It's not J juice's fault. It's not GMO's fault. It's not chemtrails' fault. It's not 5G's fault. It's not Monsanto's fault. It's not the processed foods fault. It's not fluoride's fault. It's not the Russians' fault or the Chinese fault or Trump's fault or Obama's fault or your mom's fault or your dad's fault. It's your fault that you have an adverse reaction to your environment. And until you can come to terms with that, you will put people at a disadvantage. You will have blood on your hands, Rose, for your comments, because your comments now were put out in the universe that I'm going to delete, but people have already read it. That's already in their conscience, and you have just created that. And that's what I mean by people with good intentions. The road to hell is paved by those with good intentions. And you can compliment me all you want by saying how young I look, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you have put now doubt in something that people need if they're not going to do the J juice. Now, you can promote the J juice and say how wonderful it is. And no matter what, if you get the vaccine or not, the J juice is going to support your predispositions coming to surface. But never, ever slam the vaccine and say how your experience is going to be their experience. Because that's exactly what your intention was, is to scare someone from not getting the flu shot. People do die from the flu. Not everybody, but people do die from the flu if they have predispositions. They die from the symptoms, the complications. Okay? Flu vaccine, it's a vaccine. You can't be like, you know, well, I like one vaccine but not the other. They all have they all have some kind of benefit. But if you're that weak, you're going to die no matter what. If you're that strong, you're not going to have any adverse reactions. So no matter what, if you get the vaccine or not and you have no reaction, you're fine. If you get no reaction out there, then you'll get no reaction from the vaccine. If you get no reaction from the vaccine, you get no reaction out there. But if you get a reaction from the vaccine, you're going to get a reaction from that in the environment. You realize that, Rose? That if you got a major reaction from that vaccine, most likely you might have died from the exposure to that flu virus that's in your environment. Now, the fact that you've been exposed to other flu viruses doesn't mean that you didn't have to get the vaccine. It meant that your body was strong at the time. But are you willing to roll that dice as you get older? But now you can roll the dice because you're doing the J juice. But not everybody is. And that's my point, Rose. Not everybody's doing the J juice. So you don't want to put out there something that is very relevant to you, but it's not going to be relevant to them. And that's my whole point of those that are doing the J juice and slamming vaccines, because they can afford to slam the vaccines. But not everybody can afford to slam the vaccines. Okay? That's my point, is that no matter what, if you're strong, you'll be able to handle the vaccine if it becomes mandatory or if suggested. Now, I have suggestions on my Facebook from Facebook that says, oh, I should get cholesterol tests and blood tests and mammograms and all this stuff. I'm doing the J juice. I've been exposed to viruses. I'm fine. So I can comfortably say I don't have to do all the things they're suggesting, because they're coming from a standpoint of a population of my age that's suffering complications from the age-related diseases. But I'm not. I'm actively reversing. Okay? So Rose, I don't mean to be so like intense, but actually, you know what? I lied. I do mean to be intense. I know you come from good intentions. I know you do. Okay? But we cannot scare people away from the vaccines if they've been recommended by their doctor, especially if they are under a doctor's care. Okay, I would rather somebody get very ill than die. Okay, remember, when you cure death, you get disease. That's the whole point of vaccines, is you curing death, you get disease. And antibiotics do not kill viruses. So right now, with the Ebola virus that's out there, and they've approved that vaccine, and at some point, that is going to be offered and given out to those that I guess that either they travel to those specific countries, or I don't know what would be triggering them to, I don't know what would trigger them to then start saying, okay, here's the vaccine. Because you know the anti-vax community is going to freak the hell out. It's already happening. Once that got approved, remember, they use the standard deviation scales to approve prescription drugs and vaccines. What are standard deviation scales? If they have a certain percentage that get the optimal reaction from the vaccine and from the prescription drug, then it gets released to the market. Okay? And so there's always going to be a percentage that's going to have adverse reactions no matter what, because they have the predispositions. All right, so yeah, so Dr. Phil, PewDiePie, Jeff Holiday, Carol Flack, I'm sure some of you know who Carol Flack is, who have been actively working against me, mocking me, have taken off the table an opportunity to really save humanity by their campaigns against assault, against J-Juice, against the healing symptoms, all of that. And so now people are only left with get the vaccine or not get the vaccine, or take some antibiotic that's going to further weaken their body, leaving them open to the virus ravaging them. And so I can sleep at night, but I don't think, and well, other people probably can sleep. I don't know how they sleep at night, because when you do the J-Juice, it strengthens your weaknesses. When you do the J-Juice, it strengthens your weaknesses. It's not going to kill the virus, because you can't kill viruses. You're exposed to them every single day. And viruses, again, they scan the environment and they look for weaknesses and they take over. And if you're that weak, you could die from the symptoms of that virus. Plain and simple. So if you get an adverse reaction to what's in your environment or what's in a vaccine, you're that weak. And that's it. And so that's why I don't want anybody scaring anyone away from the vaccine, especially if they're not doing the J-Juice and they're in that specific category where they are suggested to get the vaccine. I'm not saying I'm pro-vax. I'm not saying I'm anti-vax. I'm pro-Jilly Juice, and then whatever your doctor recommends to you, you do, and then you do Jilly Juice as well. And those that have slammed Jilly Juice, they don't even have that as an opportunity if they're not doing it themselves, but they have now taken that off the table for their people. And Dr. Phil took that off the table for his people. So, you know, I mean, will Dr. Phil do the Ebola vaccine? I hope he does. I hope he does. Then you better do J-Juice at the same time too, because we don't know Dr. Phil's predisposition to the blood diseases that are out there. And so he better do J-Juice if he wants to serve and not have those major complications from exposure, regardless of where it comes from. So, yeah, so me getting to the World Health Organization, talking about the J-Juice and Ebola, well, they already know I'm around. They already heard about me. They probably are ignoring me because of what Dr. Phil said. But I can, and they won't be able to replicate the J-Juice out there as far as a cure, because J-Juice is not a cure. The only way to stop a pandemic is through a vaccine. That's the only way to stop a pandemic as far as death. Because pandemics, I mean, you have pandemic and epidemic. There's a difference between pandemic and epidemic. Let's look at the difference, because that is being used as if they were synonymous, and they're not. So hold on a second. The difference between pandemic and epidemic.
According to InfoPlease, an epidemic occurs when a disease affects a greater number of people than is usual for the locality, or one that spreads to areas not usually associated with the disease.
Okay.
A pandemic is an epidemic of worldwide proportions.
Okay, so a pandemic, an epidemic, when a disease affects a great number of people that is usual for locality or one spreads to areas not usually associated with the disease. Okay, that's an epidemic. And then a pandemic is an epidemic of worldwide proportions. Yeah, okay. So you can have people getting the disease, but then you have a greater number of deaths. Then you have a greater number of deaths because people have predispositions. And so, so an epidemic could be something locally, and then a pandemic is where it's worldwide. Okay. So the vaccine is the only way to stop, when you think about it, the deaths from, because you're going to have an epidemic no matter what, because people are weak. So at least the vaccine can give people who have a half a chance, you know, give them a half a chance to survive the exposure. Okay. And that's all the vaccine. It's not supposed to make you healthy. It's not supposed to make you wonderful. Okay. It's supposed to cure you from death. Okay. So you don't die. That's the whole point of the vaccine. And so we don't want to discourage that in populations that are not doing the J juice, because they're not, I mean, we have more predispositions here. That's what I'm trying to get across to you guys, is we have predispositions here that you cannot not afford to get the vaccine and do J juice, or just do J juice. Okay, so, you know, if you get adverse reactions regardless, you're weak. Okay, you get adverse reactions regardless, you're weak. So now we're at the whole thing, the J juice is to build up your body so you don't get adverse reactions to your environment, so you're not allergic to anything. Because there's nothing in the vaccine that's poisonous. It's only poisonous if you have weaknesses. And if you have weaknesses, then guess what? You're not going to be able to handle your environment no matter what. So you really do need the vaccine more than ever. Okay? But if you have an egg allergy, which means you're weak, then there's other ways to get the vaccine in you, or get the stuff in you. Okay, and then Pia, yeah, there's no way Dr. Phil's gonna bring me on that show. There's no way. He can't afford to. As it is, he's changed the themes of his show. Now he's dealing with the most extreme cases of our society, of people who are exhibiting very, I don't know, who are trying to grow up and making huge mistakes. And then he's trying to redirect children who have been misled. That's the Dr. Phil show nowadays. He's not doing too much with trying to challenge those on Facebook and YouTube. Now he's just working with the population that he knows is safe for him to challenge, because Jilly Juice is biting him in the ass. It really is. He's definitely did not do himself any favors by slamming me at all. He didn't anticipate what I had, because he didn't know enough. He thought he did. He was told by all these people, oh yeah, it's all about the salt. And it bit him in the ass. I think it's funny as hell. So anyways, just so you guys know, there is no kombucha, elderberry syrup, or anything in the world that's going to stop a virus. When you get exposed to a virus, it has to run its course. And if you have that many weaknesses, you will suffer complications up the yin yang, and some people don't survive. Because that's the whole point of the vaccine, is that you don't have as many aggressive symptoms. Yes, you're going to get symptoms, but you're not going to have as many aggressive symptoms. Okay? So no matter what, when you have a weak population, you're going to have an epidemic and then potentially a pandemic. And that's it. Because there's no cure for weakness, but you can reverse your weaknesses. So, all right, that's all I got. But I just find it laughable that somebody was saying, oh, go to the WHO and tell them about Ebola virus and Jilly Juice. You know, I thought I was doing the world a favor by going to Dr. Phil. But then, you know, I'm watching Dr. Phil show, and, you know, he did the same thing, you know, to them he did to me. He didn't tell me exactly who he was bringing on. So I had no idea who I was facing. I had no idea how they were going to construct the show. We were told one thing, and, you know, and the other people were told, you know, they knew what was going on, but I didn't know what was going on, really. So I was, you know, I was kind of surprised to see who it is I was facing. So, and that's how they do it. That's how they put people together, and one party doesn't know what the other party's doing. So he made a mockery of something that could potentially save a lot of people, but it looks like a lot of people are going to pass away no matter what. But at least those of you that are, you know, thinking people that know me personally and have followed me for a while, you know, you're going to be the ones that are going to be the leaders in your community if you actually do this, or you're going to watch the fallout. And you're going to watch the fallout too, because you're not going to get to everybody. But just remember, there's no antibiotic, no colloidal silver, no nothing in the world is going to stop the Ebola virus. The vaccine's only going to stop the actual complication of somebody that is that weak, but it's not going to absolve someone from reacting to it if they have predispositions. And so you got to do JILLY Juice to strengthen and bring up your predispositions, so when you do get exposed to a virus, it doesn't take you down, because you have no idea. Because the virus it goes in and it bursts your blood vessels. And it starts off like a flu. Fevers, chills, nauseating, vomiting. It feels like the flu. And then you start seeing bleeding happen within you, and other parts, like your organs start bleeding from different orifices. I mean, that's actually 21 days after exposure that happens. So how that's going to manifest on JILLY Juice? Well, I don't know. Will you see bleeding on JILLY Juice if you've been exposed to Ebola virus? Potentially. But you know what? You know that you're going to be supporting your body, supporting your immune system, supporting the weaknesses, and bringing up all the weaknesses. So if somebody has the Ebola virus and they do the JILLY Juice, yeah, they'll experience some bleeding. They'll experience a lot of stuff, because that's their predisposition. They got to deal with it. So better that you strengthen your blood vessels now, so when you get exposed to Ebola, it's not going to make you have to heal it after it's been exposed. That's the point of JILLY Juice. It's preventative because it's going to strengthen the weaknesses. So the virus, it's like the angel of death. See, that's what it reminds me of. It's like Passover. It's like the Jewish holiday, or the Jewish holiday Passover. The angel of death said that for the Israelites, because the Egyptians were violating the laws of God, or didn't listen to God, or didn't listen to Moses when he said, you know, let my people go and all that. And so he said, okay, you know, during the exodus of Egypt, he said to all of the Israelites, put the blood of the lamb's blood on your door, so that way when the angel of death goes over the houses, they know which house it's not going to then take the firstborn, because the 10 plagues of Egypt was the firstborn, you know, blood in the water. I mean, you can read the 10 plagues of Egypt, but I think one of the plagues was the firstborn being sacrificed. And so the way the Israelites were saved from having their firstborn being succumbed to the angel of death is to put the lamb's blood on their door. And so then the next morning, when the angel of death came around the night before, all the Egyptians were like, oh my God, you know, my firstborn has passed away. And that's like what the virus is out there, is that they go through and they scan the environment. And if you have weaknesses, it's going to ravage you. And some of these viruses, the symptoms are extraordinarily horrific. Okay, so so you've got to, you know, now that you know that they've approved the vaccine, you know that it's out there as far as the Ebola virus. Now more than ever, you need to do the JILLY Juice. You need to be proactive. Do a preemptive strike. Bring up the weaknesses. You can't afford not to. Because if you don't do the JILLY Juice, you're then going to force to then meet that virus in its environment, and you may not survive it, or you're going to be forced to get the vaccine and still get an adverse reaction because you have predispositions. That's kind of sucky to have those kind of options if you're not even willing to look at the JILLY Juice. Okay, so Dr. Phil and PewDiePie and Jeff Holiday and Carol Flack and all of those that are working against JILLY Juice has taken that option off the table for people. And now they're forced to deal with their own predispositions, and maybe they should. Maybe everyone that follows PewDiePie and Dr. Phil and Carol Flack and all those people, maybe they should have to meet and be accountable for their predispositions. So when a virus comes through like the angel of death, they will have to deal with it. I don't know. But I know I can sleep at night, but can they? So that's all I got to say, but there is no antibiotic in the world that's going to stop a virus for those that are turning to elderberry syrup and colloidal silver and turmeric and honey and all that. It's not going to stop a virus from ravaging a weak body. I can't impress upon you that enough. Bye.